Hey guys, so I've got a new tutorial today, and this is going to be about making a sort of capture the flag system. So a lot of games, a lot of FPS games which have this sort of game mode in, maybe like Battlefield, Call of Duty, whatever, you'll see a flag, and then depending on what team you're on, you'll obviously be able to capture this objective and obviously change it to your team's colour. So I'm going to base it on like a red and blue sort of theme, somewhat similar to Halo I guess, but this is just going to be a really sort of simple way and giving you the core ideas of how to create this. So all I've got in my scene is I've made a flagpole within Unity. All it is Unity. So I've created the pole. I have got a collider, which is just a box, and I removed the mesh renderer. So the box is there, and I've got it as is trigger. And I've just named it Capture Collider. So this is what we're going to be able to go inside when, you know, whatever player you're going to be, if you're red or blue. Then I've got 3 different flags. I've got one blue, one red, and one neutral. So the blue team, the red team, and then when it's not captured by either. And I've got some particle effects just to signify, to make it easier for everybody to see that when a particular team has actually captured the objective. Now, what I've done for my first person controller, I've created 2 tags, one called red team and one called blue team. So then, depending on the tag that your player has, obviously you'll be able to run the capture down. Say the blue team had it, the red team could run the capture down. So realistically, all I've really got in my scene is I've just got a blue, a neutral, and a red. I've spelt neutral wrong, but that doesn't matter for now. And obviously I've made that with the different actual flag colours. So all I've done is literally I've got 3 different cubes underneath each other, inside each other, just with different colours. So we're going to switch those on and off depending on how we capture. And similarly with the particle effect, I've got different colours depending on who's captured it. So initially what we're going to do is we're going to write something for the actual capture collider. So we're going to detect when a player of a particular tag walks into the collider. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by creating a JavaScript file, and we'll call this flag capture. Then what we'll do is open up in MonoDevelop, and once that's done I'll zoom in, and what we'll do is I'll delete the 2 starting functions, and we'll start by writing private variable cap controller as type capture controller, and this is going to reference our script that we're going to create soon. So we're going to create a script called capture controller, so we can control all the things that's supposed to go on when we're a specific team member. So what I've got is got function start, and then we'll add 2 curly brackets below and say that cap controller equals game object dot find open brackets in quotes first person controller, close these quotes up, and then say dot get component open brackets capture controller. Just make sure that I've kept the names correct. And then what we'll do below here, we'll say that function on trigger enter open brackets call colon collider, close that up, add 2 curly brackets below there, and we'll say that if call dot tag, I know that's changed it to colour, but I'll change that in a second, is equal to the blue team. Then we'll add 2 curly brackets below and say cap controller dot blue team is equal to true. What I'll do is I'll change that to call. So what we'll do before I get everybody confused, we're going to create another JavaScript, and we're going to call this, as I said before, capture controller, and don't worry about any errors for now. So then we'll open up capture controller, and then what we'll do, we'll delete these 2 again, and we'll start by writing variable blue team as type boolean equal to false, then variable red team as type boolean equal to false. Sometimes it changes that. And then we'll save this. Then we'll go back into our other script, so we can then, what we're doing is we're referencing the script over here, and we're going to be changing the blue team, which is here, to true. And then we're going to obviously do some other things there. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to copy that if statement, paste it below, and then we'll say if it equals red team, we'll have red team equal to true. And then what we'll do is we'll copy pretty much this function again, paste it in below, and instead of enter we're going to say exit. So obviously if either player exits, we're going to do blue team and red team again, and then we're going to set these both to false and false. So that's pretty much it for this script. So all it's doing is when we enter the collider, depending on what team we're on, it's going to set some values to true or false when we exit or enter. And then we're going to go on to creating our actual controller to control everything that's going to actually go on within, to make the flag change, essentially. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a private variable and call this red capture percentage, or percent for short, and then have that floor equal to 0, and then we'll have another variable called blue capture percentage as type floor equal to 0. Then I'm gonna add a little note here, so because we're gonna have a few variables, we're gonna have this called flag object, and then I'm gonna write variable flag red as type game object. And then what I'm going to do is actually copy this variable, paste it in twice, change that to flag blue, and change this to flag neutral. And then below there we'll have this for particles, and obviously you can skip this bit, but it's pretty much going to be exactly the same thing as before, but I'm just going to change this first word to mist, and you can have some particles. You don't have to have it exactly like mine, but we're just going to do this to make it more obvious. So initially what we're going to start by doing is making sure that everything is actually turned off to start with, because we don't want to see certain things when we actually start the game or whatever you're doing. So we're initially going to say flag red, which is the game object up here, dot get component open brackets mesh renderer, close that up, dot enabled equals false. Then what I'm going to do is I'll copy this line, and I'm going to paste it in twice. Then we're going to copy flag blue to here, and we'll make sure that flag blue is equal to false. And then we're going to start off by flag neutral being equal to true, because nobody has the flag at the moment, so we'll keep it as the neutral colour. Then what we're going to do is I'll copy these three again if we're using a particle system. Obviously if you're not, you don't have to use these. What we can do is then just copy mist red, mist blue, and then mist neutral, and have it exactly the same, so we're going to be able to see the neutral. Okay, so that's initially for what we're going to have for the start. So what we'll do initially is we're going to start by writing our update function. So this is going to make sure we update accordingly to who's in the zone to capture the flag. So what we're going to do is write function update. So initially what we're going to do is we're going to say that if blue team is equal to true, so if, like in the other script, has changed blue team, so obviously the blue team's entered the actual collider itself, we'll say that blue capture percentage up here, paste that in, plus equals time dot delta time, and for now I'll just put times 20 so it'll go really fast, it'll capture very quickly. But you can obviously change this to whatever you want. You can have it times by 2, or you can have it just time.delta time, so it'll count up very slowly. Then we'll paste the same thing in again, but instead of blue this time we'll put red, and then we'll say minus equals time.delta time times 20. So what this means is that if the blue team's inside the collider, we're going to make the percentage of the blue team captured go up, and then the red team to go down. So what we'll do is we'll add 2 breaks in here. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the code. Then we'll say pretty much copy this same if statement, paste that in. We'll just make sure we put that break in. Then what we'll say that if red team is equal to true, we'll pretty much keep it as it was, but instead we'll change the blue team to minus equals and the red team to plus equals. So really we're keeping all the stuff pretty much the same, but we're just changing values depending on which team member is actually in the collider itself. So you're going to say to me, well, what about when both teams are in the collider? Obviously with some games you don't actually want anything to happen, you don't want it to go up, go down, but it's depending how you're going to write your script for your IDE if you choose to use this. Is that what we're going to say is that if red team equals true and blue team equals true, we'll add 2 curly brackets in here, and then we'll say that red capture percentage is equal to red capture percentage with a semicolon. And then we'll also say, we'll copy this line, paste it in below, and say that blue capture percentage is equal to blue capture percentage. So all this does is it means that it'll just be equal to itself, or you can set it equal to whatever you want, tell it not to move. So actually what we're actually going to do now is that once we've set that, we'll say that if red capture percentage is greater than or equal to 100, then we'll add a bracket and then 2 curly brackets below, and say that red capture percentage is equal to 100. So we can never go above that. And what we're going to do is, like what we did at the start, we'll copy all these lines at the start, and what we'll do is under here we'll paste all this in. But what I like to do is keep my code indented so I can see where it's all going. And so for this time, as if the red is equal to 100, what we're going to do is make sure that red, flag and particle effect are equal to true. So really all I'm doing is changing the true and false values depending on who's reached the maximum to begin with. So similarly, like we did exactly here, we're going to copy this if statement, and then we're going to put this if statement in below here, but instead we're going to say that if blue capture percentage is greater than or equal to 100, we'll say that blue capture percentage is equal to 100, and then what we'll do is make sure that the blue icon or flag is equal to true, and everything else is equal to false. And then what we'll do is we'll save this, and then we're going to do one more instance here. So if both teams are stood in the capture point at any one time and they set it to a neutral value, so 50 each, then what we're going to do is actually set it back to neutral again. So what we'll do is we'll say that if blue capture percentage is, but this time, less than or equal to 50, and red capture percentage is less than or equal to 51, then we'll say that neutral is true again and blue is false. So you just make sure you copy and paste all those correct statements in. Then to make sure that we can never go below 0, so we don't obviously want to go into negative values if one team takes it far down, because we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. The red capture percentage is less than or equal to 0. Then we need to make sure that red capture percentage is set to 0. And obviously we'll do the same for blue. And we'll set blue capture percentage. I'll copy that, I'll paste that in, and I'll save that. So this is pretty much the entirety of the script, so I'll just quickly run through. We've had the other script which triggers when we walk into a collider depending on the team. We're going to set some objects within the scene. We're making sure that we turn all the non-essential objects off, so we've got the neutral to begin with. We'll say that if the blue team's inside the collider, we'll make the percentage for the blue team increase, but the red team decreases, vice versa for the red team. So the blue team's percentage goes down, but the red team's goes up. If they're both in at the same time, they're both set to whatever they're equal at that time. If the red capture percentage goes up to 100, we'll set it to 100 so it never goes higher, and we'll make sure that the red team then enables their components. Obviously, if the blue team gets to 100, then the blue team components are enabled. If they both get to the value of 50, so they're both capped down, we're going to go back to a neutral position. And then if either of them ever get to 0, we're going to make sure that we can't go below 0 and essentially break the game. So one last thing that you might like to do, just for debugging purposes, so you can actually see this going on, you can write function on GUI, open up brackets and then 2 curly brackets below, and say GUI.box, open brackets, rect, open brackets again, 10, 10, 300, 25, close that up, put a comma, put in quotes red cap, and then in quotes, then add a plus, then add 2 quotes, put a space inside those 2 quotes, and then say plus red capture percentage dot toString, open brackets, in quotes, add a 0, close that up, add a plus, and then add 2 quotes, but again add a space in between, add a plus, write blue cap, then close that quotation up, add a plus, quotes with a space, another plus, blue capture percentage dot toString, open brackets, in quotes, 0, close that up with a bracket and another bracket, so 2 brackets and a semicolon. So all this is doing is we're actually showing some text, red and blue capture, and we're actually going to show the percentage going up as the time goes on. So what we'll do is go back into Unity, and what I'll do is add to my capture controller the flag capture, and then I'll add the capture controller itself, so you can see we can add all our values here. So what we'll do is we'll add flag blue, flag neutral, flag red, then we'll have mist blue, mist red, oops, and mist neutral. Well, make sure you've got flag neutral back there. And what we'll do is on the FPS controller, make sure that you've got a tag. So we're going to start off with the blue team. One thing I will care to mention before I move on, I forgot to change the mist value. So obviously for particle effect, it's not got a mesh renderer all it is just a single renderer. So obviously for all the mist values, we just want to, or all the particle effect values, we want to just change that to a renderer. So obviously the objects can stay the same for the flags, but the particle effects need to be changed to just renderer. So we'll save that back out. And one thing I will mention as well is that on the 50 values, when they're both equal to less than or equal to 50, I need to make sure that we don't actually set any values there. And one thing that you can do is, obviously I've added my both my scripts to my game object, which is the actual trigger. So what we're going to actually make sure that we do is that in the flag capture, we're going to change this to whatever game object that we have the actual scripts on. So I've got mine on the capture collider. So what I'll do is I'll copy that, and then we'll say you know, obviously we're going to find it on that game object, not the first person controller. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play the game. And then if you see the first person controller is tagged as the red team, everything's set to 0. We walk inside this, the red team's going to increase to a certain amount, and obviously if we get to 100, it's going to change everything. Obviously if I step out of this collider now, and then I change myself to the blue team, what we're going to do is we're going to notice that it counts down, goes to neutral, and then goes to blue. So pretty much that's the entirety of just making a simple, fairly simple sort of capture the flag system within Unity, using tags and using a simple bit of counting up and down depending on who's inside the collider. So as ever, thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.